Laying off white people, a new and problematic secret ingredient in Capri Sun, and lazy young people doing less and expecting more. Losers everywhere. Then a bona fide Pawn star calls BS on the Brandon economy and shares what people are being forced to forego just to get by. Plus, the patriot, the proud American, the singer-songwriter behind the anthem, God Bless the USA, Lee Greenwood is here. And last but not least, you know I have some final thoughts. It's a Thirsty Thursday and the show starts now. Inflation is reduced, the border is secure, and our president is definitely not suffering from dementia. The left thinks just because they tell us those things, it makes it true because they think we are that stupid. But now that another week of Democrat gaslighting is nearly behind us, you know I have to crown some losers of the week. And as usual, the pool is deep. First up is the blatantly racist Minneapolis Federation of Teachers Union and their new fully illegal and unconstitutional agreement with the school district, which requires white teachers to be laid off first, based not on merit, not on seniority, but based solely on race. But get this, that agreement, the racist and completely illegal stipulation to access white teachers first, wasn't just on a wish list or thrown around by a few morons in a meeting. It was the part of the negotiation that ended a 2-week teacher strike. So yes, that means that teachers in Minneapolis, teachers tasked with educating, shaping, and mentoring young minds, mandated discrimination against white people in order to return to the job. That's how absolutely woked up our society and education system has gotten. That's not a reparation, that's BS. In fact, that agreement is so asinine and ridiculous, I wouldn't be surprised if its advocates were sipping on my next loser of the week when they came up with it. Yes, if you haven't heard and you might have some wild cherry Capri Sun pouches sitting around your fridge, you might want to listen up. Kraft Heinz, the company responsible for producing the popular juice pouches, has recalled nearly 6,000 cases of the wild cherry flavor over possible contamination from a cleaning solution. Now, this was a voluntary recall, but the decision was made after customers noticed a little something extra in the flavor. When I read about this recall, I couldn't help but remember one of our losers last week, the dermatologist out of Irvine, California, who attempted to poison her husband with drain cleaner. Had she just administered some good old-fashioned kid-friendly Capri Sun Plus cleaning solution, she might have gotten away with it. What a world, what a world. But to round out this week's loser bracket, I have selected an entire generation, Gen Z. Turns out that generation has given a cute name to laziness. They call it quiet quitting. It's the new phenomenon taking the Gen Z crowd by storm, and hint, hint, it has to do with doing less work. You're shocked, I know. Quiet quitting is the practice now favored by young people that entails putting in less effort at work and simply doing the bare minimum. This quiet quitting trend is backed by Gallup research that suggests in the first quarter of 2022, only 31% of Gen Z workers felt engaged at work. And though most rational folks would recognize this as problematic, some of these quiet quitters refer to it as working smarter, not harder. No, it's called being lazy AF, and it's what happens when parents allow their entitled little brat kids to grow up on TikTok and Instagram believing it's cute and cool to be a mediocre human so long as they can call it something that sounds important. You know, at some point, boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials are going to retire or die, and that's the workforce we're going to be left with. God save us. If these brats want to quietly quit something, let it be voting. Those are my losers of the week, all deserving, all headache-inducing. And don't forget, you can catch the full show on Outkick.com as well as exclusive content, Outkick.com. But up next, you know him from the hit show Pawn Stars. Rick Harrison joins me next. Well, despite Biden's teleprompter's best effort to gaslight us otherwise, inflation is not at 0%. It's at about 8.5%. And that means the American people, not the illegals we're sponsoring, but the American people are cash-strapped and suffering. And in times like these, folks are being forced to get creative and forego things near and dear to their hearts to make ends meet. That's certainly what my next guest has been seeing firsthand at his world-famous Las Vegas pawn shop. Joining me now is the owner of Gold and Silver Pawn Shop and star of Pawn Stars, Rick Harrison. Rick, thank you so much for being with me and breaking all this down. You know, no one would ever think that people would start pawning things because things are getting a little tough out there, but that's what you've been seeing.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, when they come up with the inflation figure, it's a real relative term. It's might be 8.5% if you make $100,000 a year, but it's a lot more if you make 30 or $40,000 a year. Especially, I mean, a good portion of the year I live on the Oregon coast, which is really rural, and people drive twice as much there. So it affects them in different ways in different parts of the country, and Las Vegas has a terrible public transportation system. I'm all sure get some local politicians calling up and complaining about that, but everyone drives, and lower income people it affects a lot more. And there's a portion of the population that like the rest of the world doesn't think about. It's like that bottom 20% who don't even have can't even get a bank account and things like that. And it's just tough on families right now. It's the price of food, the price of everything. And, by the way, they say it's 8.5%, but that's the way the government figures it. And I think it's a lot higher than that, actually.
Well, Las Vegas has been through a lot. We know during the recession, I actually lived in Las Vegas at that time, and I remember how hard it was hit. And I know that people had to get creative, but now we're back in that same time frame. Of course, this is not the days of the Trump administration when things were going well and the economy was booming. What are you seeing in Las Vegas and at your pawn shop and the people that you talk to? What are they having to do as it relates to pawning items, and what kind of items to be able to put food on their table and pay their bills?
At my shop, I mean, pre-pandemic, I was averaging 3,000 people a day at my shop. Now it's right around 1,800, 2,000. And things are getting better. I still don't have the international customers that I was getting. But I have like the people who pawn stuff. I mean, that has definitely been ticking up the past couple months. It's getting harder and harder to ends meet. Like I said, rents are up, everything is up. And I just really feel it's going to continue to go up because we have a government that's just fueling the entire inflation thing.
And Nevada is a weird state as well because it used to be reliably red and then it went kind of purple and then it's been blue for several years. A very weird dynamic there. But do you think that the people in that state, and especially in Las Vegas, are understanding that the politicians that they're electing at the local level, the state level, the federal level are causing the problems that they're seeing every day? Are they making that connection?
I think they're beginning to. I mean, but most people just watch the whole the liberal media machine, and they have 5,000 excuses why it's not their fault, and it's just getting people to I think people are just so fed up. They're beginning to learn. Joe Lombardo's running for governor. Great, incredible guy. I been backing him left and right. I hope he wins, and so hopefully it changes around because I mean But the whole thing is with it all boils down to the federal government spending money like crazy and policies that instead of encouraging business are restricting business. I mean, when you restrict American business, you're going to have less American business. We're going to rely on imports where there's going to be less competition and the prices go up. It's real basic economics. Apparently, no one in the White House has read a book on economics.
Well, you're an employer as well. Are you having a hard time keeping employees in your store and in your business? Because it seems like nobody wants to work anymore, at least work hard.
It is very difficult finding employees right now. Just a couple, like a month ago, we had like 19 interviews lined up and one person showed up. And I think they showed up because they thought they had to continue getting unemployment. No, it is very hard to find employees right now. I don't understand why. I mean, I never got a dime of unemployment myself in my life, and I've always worked. Because, well, if you saw my dad on the show, he would scream at me if I didn't. I mean, no, it's if we had someone in office that understood, let's drill for oil, make business easy. All this would go away very quickly. But the problem is, you have employee. I mean. Now with the economy turning back, I mean, you have a lot of people freezing hiring. You have, other businesses. With the way the economy is right now, I wouldn't expand to do anything.
Yeah, a lot of people are in that position. Businesses have been hit so hard. first with COVID and shutting everything down, and then slightly reopening and putting a lot of infringements on business owners, and then not being able to get people to come back and work. And then even when you do get people that come back and work, they're so used to living off the government and unemployment, they really don't want to do much of anything. So we've put ourselves in this position, and then we wonder what happened. And then we pass things called the Inflation Reduction Act, which goes to show that words really mean nothing to Democrats anymore. They change the meaning willy-nilly. But last thing I want to ask you is, if we do plunge into that R-word recession, which they told us was actually the case a few weeks ago, although the White House wouldn't admit it, what does that mean for Las Vegas? What does that mean for your business?
I mean, it's the same for my business as Las Vegas, the whole country. I mean, like, and it's going to hit lower income people the most. And, people are going to struggle. It's like I said, simple economics. Just make it easy to do business. I mean, I love doing business. You know what I mean? I mean, I could retire tomorrow if I want to. I don't want to. I mean, I enjoy, I feel good about myself when I pay my employees insurance and everything like that. It's just, but when the government just comes along and just basically tries to put the brakes on everything and tells me I'm a bad guy because I'm an employer, guys like me, I mean, and a lot of people I know that have really big businesses, a lot bigger than me, they're all right now. They're all telling me that they're just banking all the cash because they're afraid there's going to be some kind of crazy, weird lockdown down the road. And they don't want to get stuck like they were before without a huge amount of money in the bank to cover everything.
Well, and who wins in all this is, of course, Democrats that love people to be dependent on government, and then also China, which owns a whole lot of Las Vegas. So that's another thing that we need to keep an eye on. But we appreciate you being here. Best of luck to you, and keep holding down the fort in Las Vegas or Oregon or wherever you are. And we hope to see you again soon.
Same here. Talk to you soon.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much. All right, still ahead. He's a music legend with a special affinity for the USA, so I think we're going to be fast friends. Lee Greenwood is here with me in Nashville next. In a time when the vocal minority of Americans find it fun to crap on America, kneel for our anthem, and rip down our statues, bash our founders, it's good to be with a man, a legend, who proudly loves the USA. His song has become like a second national anthem, and I'm honored to have him here with me, Lee Greenwood. Lee, thank you so much for being here. Everybody knows the song. Everybody loves the song. It's basically a 4th of July anthem at this point, and next year is celebrating 40 years. What does that mean to you?
Well, I wrote it in 1983, and I was touring really heavily. I just signed with MCA. My label mates were Reba McEntire, George Strait, the Oak Ridge Boys, and Barbara Mandrell. And Barbara and I had a duet album, and we were all working very hard, 300 days a year. And so to know that I wrote a song in the back of my bus for an album cut, it really wasn't meant to be a single, and then emerge as an anthem for America in today's generations. It's humbling, and at the same time, I'm so proud that I've done something to move America forward. Take us to where we need to be instead of going backwards.
Back when you wrote the song, correct me if I'm wrong, but people love the country. Most people love the country, whether they were a Democrat or a Republican, they were a Christian, an atheist. People loved the country that they lived in. That's not the same as we sit here in 2022. Especially over the last couple of years, there's been a vocal effort to really cancel everything that it means to be an American. All of our symbols of patriotism, our anthem, our American flag. As somebody who really is synonymous with patriotism, what has this time been like for you? And like I said, the vocal minority of people who seem to find it so fun to just crap on our country.
I think you put it very right. I think it is a vocal minority. I like the way you phrase that, because I tour the country, and as we tour, we find not just conservatives, we find Americans in all small towns, big cities. There are people who do love the country, but they don't have a voice. I don't know why conservatives tend to say, don't tend to say enough. They are more silent about it. And it's funny because we kind of whisper, look out, there's a liberal. And it's like, why don't we say that out loud, And so I'm proud to know that I represent that voice. And all I can, as my work with at least 5 conservative presidents and performing for 10, it gives me an insight to where which president has done the best and which ones are meaningful to our population. Are they good enough for America, and has America moved forward under each administration? And it's a little disappointing that a president of the United States would have so much influence over the rest of the country, because we all have a voice and we could use it if we want to, but a lot of people don't.
A lot of people cancel themselves. But you brought up something, so I have to ask you. You've performed for so many presidents, Republicans, Democrats, everybody. Who do you think of those people loved this country the most, or at least seemingly loved this country the most and the least?
Well, I would say probably 41, because we became very good friends. I performed at the White House with a congressional appearance for the Reagans, and at the time Bush was vice president. I met them both, and there's a cute little picture you can find somewhere online. I'm standing with Nancy Reagan, and the president's at the podium, and he had said something about I had come from Texas, and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. President, I came from Tennessee." "Oh, well, sorry." You interrupt the president of the United States. But I met 41 then, and we became very close. I actually sang for him in Kennebunkport just before he passed. I think he was the most wonderful president, and of course he was a war hero. He was the head of the CIA. He was very smart. He learned a lot of the comedy quips from Reagan, but at the same time, he really loved America. He loved it very much. What president I think had moved the country forward the most would be our former president, Donald Trump, because I think when he said "Make America Great," he meant it. And the worst, well, I hate to say, on your camera, but there's several that I did not like on the left, and
right,
you know who they are.
I wish it was not a partisan thing to love your country, but there's a certain segment of the population that wants to make it a partisan thing, even saying that they're triggered by seeing American flags. I mean, that was an article that liberals are writing. They drive through towns and they see American flags and they feel like it's a symbol of white people. It's not a symbol of white people. It's not a symbol of people of color. It's a symbol of Americans, red, white, and blue, and that's it. So we're happy to have you and your voice out there for the silent majority that should be the vocal majority of Americans who love this country. But I want to transition to another topic. Okay. So as we know, the CDC finally came to their senses and said, hey, listen, vaccinated and unvaccinated people, we're going to treat them the same. We're going to make sure everything's open. We're going to stop the quarantining of asymptomatic people. We're going to do away with all of that. Wonderful. Probably 2 years too late. What impact did the COVID era have on your business, and will the music industry be able to rebound without raising their ticket prices to such astronomical levels that middle-class Americans can't afford?
The last part, we have rebounded already. In 2020, I kind of prayed for more work, and the Lord dumped it on me. And so in 21, we probably worked 60, 70 days on the road. And I have a tour support, ABC Supply out of Beloit, Wisconsin, and they're all in for me. So they said, as much as you want to tour. Well, this year, probably over 120 dates. And that's a lot, because I'm aging and I don't really like the tour that much. But at the same token, I want to get the message out. I want to do as much as I can to keep America off its knees and appreciate who we are as the greatest country on earth. So 2020 was rough, and I believed in all of the things we did for COVID. But at the same time, here's the approach I think they should have taken: keep the old folks home. Don't shut down the economy. Those people who have to work, let them work. When you shut down the economy, that became a worse threat than the COVID. Mm-hmm. It set us back 10, 15, 20 years. And then the oil crisis, of course, you've got that to deal with. But once we got rid of the masks thing and the mask mandate, which I don't think the CDC really should have had that kind of control over our population. No. They don't deserve that kind of power. I understand what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. I got a boy that's a scientist, and he told me the same thing. He said, masks do help, but at the same time, he said, we all need to be either get disease or get vaccinated, and then we're over it. Let's move on.
Right. Well, again, masks work if you change them every 5 minutes. You never touch them. You wash them, or you have disposable, or you have the medical grade ones. Okay, then maybe masks work. Not when you're wearing the same one every single day and you're breathing in your own filth and your own sweat all day long. All it does is give you mask acne. So there's that. But I'm glad we're rebounding. And I'm glad that we finally are. It should have never happened. I hope we look back at it as one of the dumbest times in recent American history, because it was. But you also cater to a group of Americans who are always essential, and those are our service members and our veterans, and you do a whole lot to help them. Tell my audience what you do and how they might be able to help.
Thank you. My father joined the Navy right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I was born in 1942 while he was deployed. It was an interesting beginning because I didn't serve in the military. At the age of 16, raised by my grandparents in Sacramento, California, we were sharecroppers. I took music instead of sports, and I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. I spent 20 years in the casinos, still not rubbing elbows with the military as much as I would in the future. When I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, the first thing I did was sign up with the National Guard and do USO tours. We did 30 of those tours, and anytime I'm with the military, I actually love being there. So I think, I won't say it's the only thing I do, because we support St. Jude's as well, but we have a function out of Houston, Texas called Helping a Hero, and we build homes for wounded warriors. Over 200 homes in 10 years. And this year, 100 homes we're going to build courtesy of Bass Pro Shops, and Johnny Morris has kicked in to help us with it, a great American, a great patriot. The Breland family in northern Alabama has helped us build this 100 as well. And it's just, it's so heartfelt when I can give a soldier who's a double, triple amputee a key to a house, because then he has a new life, a lease on life. And we're called helpingahero.org. If you go to my website, leegreenwood.com, you can also find that link. And not the only thing, we don't need just money. I mean, donations are fine, but when we build a house, we actually get a contractor in the local area where the soldier wants to live, and he donates his time. The subs donate their time. We get maybe 100 volunteers, and we can build a $500,000 house in about 7 months.
Wow.
So a little bit of cash is fine. But then now that we have such a fast track to build all these homes, and we're not going to stop this year, we need the veterans. We need people to nominate a vet. If you know somebody who's either a burn victim or a PTSD or an amputee, let us know who they are. Adopt a vet, and that go to the website as well. And that's helpingahero.org.
That's fantastic. And a lot of people talk about supporting their country and supporting their veterans, but you actually do it, and you do it in a big way, and it means so much. And just hearing your songs, honestly, would be enough, because it means a lot to people, and it instills a patriotism and a reminder that we do love our country. And this is the only one we got. There's nowhere else to flee to. It's the greatest nation on the face of the earth, no matter who the president is. And we thank you for always reminding us of that. You have something else special coming out, a God Bless the USA Bible. Tell me about that.
You know, Kim and I, we both have our own personal Bibles, and they're on our nightstands. And we have a family Bible that sits in the table in the center of the room that is kind of a historic thing. It lists people and so forth that have been before us. I thought it was very important that our country, I don't care if you're a liberal or a conservative or you're an immigrant or not an immigrant, you need to know how our country got started. And I had a lot of people, it's funny, along the way said, you know, your song should be the national anthem. And I said, no. If you look at your history, and when Francis Scott Key was imprisoned on a ship offshore, and he looked up and the battle over Fort McHenry was taking place, we could have lost the country that night. And when he wrote the Star Spangled Banner, because the flag is still flying, I said, that's going to be our national anthem forever. Don't worry about that. But a lot of people have never read the Constitution. And if they read the Bill of Rights, it might have been in school during their civics class. And if you go to Washington, D.C., you might see it, but it's in really tiny print. So we have a leather-bound, beautiful Bible. It's the King James Version. And in the back of the Bible, we don't touch God's Word. And in the back of the Bible, there's the Constitution, readable, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. And so now you have in one book, you have what we believe as a Christian, a conservative Christian, if you will, how we got started as a world, and then how we got started as a country.
I can think of a few folks in D.C. that maybe should get those for the next holiday. Maybe it would do them well to read both parts. I think they're missing both.
I need to send it.
So I think that there's a lot of people, maybe starting right out with Joe Brandon and maybe Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, just a few, especially that Constitution and Bill of Rights part, because that seems to be lost on them to a great degree. But thank you so much for being here and everything that you do and being in Tennessee, and we're so happy to have you, and we can't wait to celebrate the 40th year of that song next year.
Thank you, Tomi.
All righty. And don't forget, guys, you can watch the full show on Outkick.com as well as exclusive content. But up next, Californians are once again being asked to bake in the sweltering heat in their own homes so there isn't another blackout. Sounds like California. My final thoughts are next. California, under the illustrious leadership of Lord Hairgel, Governor Gavin Newsom, has asked its residents to once again avoid their air conditioners in the midst of a heat wave to prevent rolling blackouts. Sounds like California is indeed the fifth largest economy in the third world. It's time for final thoughts. It's hot this week in California, which can either be attributed to climate change or summer. But if you Californians were planning on cranking up the AC like you live in a civilized first world nation, well, think again. The manager of California's power grid has implemented another flex alert. And for those of you who haven't lived in the overpriced hellhole of California, that's when the government asks residents not to use energy between 4 and 9 p.m. to prevent rolling blackouts. Not only should residents avoid the AC, you should also avoid appliances such as the dishwasher or washing machine, really any heavy appliance, including those electric vehicles the tree huggers want you to buy. Those are off limits, though Gavin will almost certainly still be using his hairdryer before a night out at the French Laundry. But the powers that be that control the power don't want to overly strain the grid and cause a repeat of summer 2020. Not the riot season part, they're fine with that, but the 2 consecutive nights in August of that year when rolling blackouts left hundreds of thousands in the dark. Now look, the energy grid nationwide is not exactly great, so I can't fault only California for it as much as I'd like to. But the fact that residents in that high-tax, high-regulation state have to ration energy boggles my mind. I thought California, with a budget surplus of almost $100 billion, was supposed to be so advanced. Isn't that what Gavin is always bellowing from the rooftops? Listen, I'm no power grid expert, nor am I a meteorologist, but for as much grief as Gavin gives Florida and Ron DeSantis, I'm pretty sure residents of the Sunshine State aren't told to shut their shades and swelter in the heat sans HVAC to avoid a rolling blackout. Just saying. Californians, as much as I'd like to remind you you're paying way too much to live somewhere that offers way too little, I don't really want any more of you moving to Tennessee or any other red state for that matter, so I'll just say happy heating. Those are my final thoughts from Nashville. God bless and take care.